Let's bring in Timberwolves beat writer Chris Hine. Well, not like anything's going on, Chris. All you had was Tuesday, the sale of the team becoming official, Board of Governors approving Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez. Nice that they could do that a day before the draft starts and like a week before free agency. Just little things along the way after a playoff run. I'm sure you're all the off-court news is catching up to you at a certain point.
Let's just say it's been a long year.
and by the way, you published a book
year and a half. Yeah.
By the way, you published a book too.
A book came out in the last 3 weeks as well. Yeah, that I was a nice easy breeze to work on late, last summer and last fall.
I'm sure.
I'm in a very good mental state right now.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. You need a beach vacation. But first you need to tell me what the significance is here of the ownership change, because again, we've been bracing for this and talking about this for 4 years, but more so in the last few months. And you reported, I think the other day, that this was likely, and then the Board of Governors gave their approval unanimously on Tuesday. So it feels like a moment. What are we, now that this is official, what should we be paying attention to with the new owners taking over?
Yeah, first order of business is, as we've always thought, that they're going to look to figure out, new arena, what's going to happen with Target Center. Obviously, I think they have visions of renovating things or or finding a new spot for an arena. We'll see kind of what their plans really are here, but I don't think Target Center, as currently constructed and as it sits right now, is going to be what they're satisfied with moving forward. So some sort of change is coming to the venue that they will be playing in the future. We don't know how long that process is going to take. We don't know how drawn out it will be. So more to come, on that front. And, Marc and Alex will say stuff as well about that, I think, coming up soon here as well.
I'm old enough to remember when they just renovated Target Center. It doesn't feel like that long ago that they poured like $100 million into it. But the thing, it's not one of the NBA's glamour arenas, to put it mildly. It's one of the older ones now, I believe. And
it is, yes. Yeah.
1989, I think, 1990, somewhere in there. So it's 35 years old, 90s, which is which in arena terms is a long time. But it feels like downtown is still the place for an arena. Don't you? I don't know.
It is. I think it is. And I think they know that too. And I think ideally that's where they would like to have it, right? But a lot goes into it, and they're. Arenas these days are not just it's not just the arena, right? Like, no, it's everything that's around it. It's what you can develop in and around that, and turning it into like a destination for people to come, even when maybe there's not games happening there, right?
Yeah.
I lived in Chicago, for instance, when Wrigley Field was going through its renovations, and Wrigley Field 12, 13 years ago is way different from the experience around Wrigley Field these days. And I think even this is like that, like just building up the area in and around the arena is such an opportunity for people. So I think you have to consider that now when you think about what the team may be getting out of the arena. It's not just the arena, but what can you do in and around it as well.
When they emerged as buyers, 4 years ago, honestly, is what it's been, and this was a process. You know better than anybody that this was a process. But the initial worry was, oh my gosh, these guys aren't from around here. They're going to want to move the team. They've been very careful and very upfront by saying, no, we believe in this here in Minnesota. That none of that changes at this point, right? This is all still very much a Minnesota product.
Absolutely not. It is just, I think at this point, the paranoid Minnesota sports fan mind that thinks that they're going to move the team. They, from day one, for the last 4 years, they have repeatedly said the team isn't going anywhere. So I don't know, kind of what more they need to say. Listen, I guess, ultimately the proof is in the pudding, and, now that they're actually owners, but even for the last 4 years, you never heard any whispers, any speculation, nothing like that.
No.
That was even a possibility, right? So,
yeah,
they've always come out very strong, very definitively with on the record statements saying we are not moving the team, and that has not changed, despite maybe what the Strib commenters say.
Oh, stay away from the Strib commenters.
We
Stay
love
away
them.
from social. We love them. We love them.
Keep subscribing, please.
Keep subscribing, but tame down the comments. It's going to be okay. Now, the one thing, Glenn Taylor, who also owns the Star Tribune, we're contractually obligated to say that. He owned this team for a long time, and there was certainly moments that we probably wish never happened, like Joe Smith, although I think there's been some retrofitting of that narrative over the years. But whatever you thought of Glenn Taylor, you kind of knew what you were getting from Glenn Taylor as an owner, and he wasn't afraid to spend money, especially this year. They were, second apron team. They were deep into the tax. What kind of owners do you think Marc Lore and Alex Rodriguez will be now that they are the owners?
Well, I think they realize what it takes to be competitive in the NBA, and the reality is you have to pay the luxury tax to be a competitive or championship team. Or you can only maybe get away with a year or two. Like last year when the Wolves made it to the Western Conference Finals, they were not a tax team. Mm-hmm. This year they were a second apron team with about an $85+ million luxury tax bill. So the cost of being good goes up very quickly in the NBA. So I think they realize that, and it's about building a team. Especially if you're going to build a new arena, potentially you need people to fill it up, right? Yep. You need people watching the games on TV. You need revenue coming into the arena. You need revenue coming into the franchise, and that's how you do it. You win, just straight up at the end of the day. So I think they realize that, and that if you try to cut corners by not paying the luxury tax, then ultimately in the long run, it's going to harm the value of the franchise more than it's going to help it.
Things really couldn't have worked out much better for them, eventually, because you think back to when this whole process started 4 years ago, like the Wolves hadn't won a playoff series in forever. They weren't even a playoff team in the 2021 season. Now they did start turning things around in the 21-22 season, but you combine that, you see how much the franchise increased in value over the time between the purchase agreement and then the final takeover. Like they're walking in now to, a team that's gone to the Western Conference Finals twice in a row. That's now, has this rising star in Anthony Edwards, who, he was a nice 21-year-old player, and another 2019 when they first, were in this business. Now he's one of the marquee players in the league. Like they've got a lot going for them that they're walking into at this moment. It feels like
they are, and I think they realize that they have a responsibility to keep it going, right? And they went out and got Tim Connelly 3 years ago. They have their coach in place. They have their superstar in place. And I think they realize the value of continuity for a franchise that hasn't had much of that before they got here and before this era of the Timberwolves has taken place. So, I think that's big. I think, Marc Lore, one of his things is he's big on, once he finds the right people for the right positions, trying to stay out of the way a little bit and let them do their thing. And right now, I think they're pretty happy with what they have, and from all levels of the basketball side of the operation.
So we're not going to see Marc Lore turning in the draft card Wednesday night at number 17. It's still going to be the Wolves brain trust doing that, not him.
I believe so. We'll see, but I think so. I don't do they turn in the card? I
don't know what they do anymore.
Everybody's back at the facility, so I think they just call it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, they probably just call it.
Yeah,
they probably don't even need a card anymore anyway.
Right.
It's all done. It's all done very, very much virtually. But I guess that was kind of a attempted humor in a way to kind of get into the draft, but B, like how much like in the basketball sphere do you think Lore and A-Rod want to be? Like they obviously want to be kept abreast of all of the comings and goings. There's a lot of big decisions to make, but like how much do you think they'll weigh in on things like that and want to be kind of a part of the action?
I think not too much. I feel like and I think that's maybe one of the advantages of having I don't think there's going to be like this, the new owner syndrome, right? Like people come in and all of a sudden they want to start making these big splashy moves, right? I've argued that they've already made that move when they had the Gobert trade as part of Tim Connelly's first couple weeks on the job here. So I don't think you're going to necessarily see that, but I do think they're going to be involved, and I do, I think they are in constant communication with Tim Connelly, especially this time of year. Obviously, when financial decisions and luxury tax ramifications are in play with any move the Wolves want to make, right? So, we'll see. We'll see. Maybe they get in the big chair and things change a little bit, but I don't get the sense that it's going to be like overly overbearing.
Last time we talked, it was Kevin Durant speculation, but now he's going to Houston. So what has Tim Connelly got cooking that's going to be a total surprise to us? It feels like something's...
Well, it wouldn't be much of a surprise if I knew about it, right?
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, it still feels like something's kind of cooking. I don't know what it is, but it feels like I don't...
Well, I mean, just in general, I said this to you before, they're going to make another big swing at some point, right?
Yeah.
We just don't know when. We don't know if it's going to be this free agency window. Is it going to be the trade deadline? Is it going to be next summer? It feels like there's another big move coming at some point. It's all about finding the right move at the right time. And they've been pretty good with that in Tim Connelly's tenure so far, making the right moves when they've been there. So I don't know. It wouldn't surprise me if next year's team looked a lot like this year's team. Once we hit like July 10th, right? Mm-hmm. So that would not surprise me in the least. But I do feel like it's all about waiting for the right moment to strike. And maybe the right moment to strike isn't this transaction window. Maybe it is at another time.
Don't get so thirsty for a big three that you go get Bradley Beal. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, kind of.
Like don't be the Suns.
There was a case of new owner syndrome, right? Like, that should be studied in colleges and universities for what not to do.
That'd be so embarrassing to the Suns if they made that a university course. There's like how not to run an NBA team, the 2023 through 2025 Phoenix Suns. So draft Wednesday and Thursday, 17 and 31. I don't imagine we have much more intel on what's going to happen at this point. And you wrote recently that whatever you think might happen, like they've traded around the board basically every Connelly draft. So it could be something completely different. They could package these picks to move up, to move into a different draft, to get a player. Do you have any sense of like what's the most likely outcome or any players they might even positions they might want to look at in the draft here?
Yeah, I think you're thinking along the lines of, I think maybe front court as opposed to back court, with some of the players who might be in that range that are look like prospects that could play right away, I think. So, guys like, Rasheer Fleming from St. Joseph's, Carter Bryant from Arizona, although that's probably going to require a trade up. But like I said, the Wolves are never, if they like a guy like Rob Dillingham a year ago, they're never afraid to try to make an aggressive move to go get him. Derek Queen, Thomas Sorber from Georgetown seems to be on a lot of folks' minds. That kind of player, I think, is an archetype of, maybe what they're looking for. I don't really know. It's just buzz and speculation that I've heard with, it's the draft. There's a lot of noise this time of year, so take it for what it's worth.
I'm glad you brought up Dillingham because to me, he's kind of the key to this offseason, it feels like, to a certain degree, because how much they believe he can play next year might influence a lot of what they feel like they need to do. And by the way, he's 6'3". You texted me and Royce. He's 6'3". He's not smaller than Mike Conley.
I know that was a very popular topic the other day when I was listening back, because I was like, Rob Dillingham isn't that small. Like, he's not 5'8" out there. He's not Muggsy Bogues running around.
And Finch, I think Finch gave a K-Fan interview last week where he was saying the area where Dillingham made the most strides this year was defensively. Maybe he's said that other times too. So it's not like there's, but they're also keep saying like it could be a year, it could be like, whatever the timeline is on Dillingham feels like it influences. Like I don't think you can have the same point guard plan next year that you had this year if you don't think Rob Dillingham's ready to play.
No, and there's going to be opportunity there for him next year. Like, I think as Mike Conley enters what will be his age 38 season, there's going to be opportunity there. Like at that point, is Rob good enough to start? If he is, then I think you turn over the keys, right? And Mike Conley comes off the bench for you. It's going to be there. It's going to be there. He's had a year under his belt now to learn the NBA, learn a little bit about defense, learn a little bit about his decision making on the offensive end of the floor. But I maintain that he's not going to get any better, especially at the point guard position, without getting the reps. So at some point, you have to give him a long rope to make mistakes and not, maybe live with some nights where maybe he makes some questionable decisions and you may lose a game or two because of it. But I think you have to have at least a little bit of an eye on his long-term development here, because you did trade up to get him, because I think the player he could be very beneficial playing alongside Anthony Edwards. So to me, Dillingham and Shannon, who it sounds like Shannon will have more of a guaranteed role.
Yeah.
And I think he's shown enough, especially in the playoffs, to earn that. But with Dillingham, I think you got to give him more of a runway than they did this year. And some of that was injury related too. He was hurt for portions of the season.
Right. It was a hip. Well. I can't remember what it was.
He sprained his ankle a couple different times actually. Okay. And so, it wasn't all, the whole year wasn't just all, he was in Chris Finch's doghouse or whatever. There were he was injured for multiple weeks at various points in the season with a bum ankle.
Now, Finch also said the other day that Ant had a bad finishing year and that he wants him to go back to being a little bit more of the player he was 3 years ago, attacking in the open floor, attacking the rim. And, he led the league in 3-pointers. So like he developed a part of his game that was not there before. Is there like a sweet spot for him where he does need to get to the rim more? Because his shots at the rim this year, I think, were like 17, 18%.
Well,
earlier his career was more like 30% in terms of volume.
He was middle of the season, he was getting to the free throw line at a pretty good clip. I think, to the point about finishing, he's got to finish, I think, through the contact a little more, not try to worry so much about the foul call and whether that's going to come or not. I think that's one of his issues in that regard. I think they have to play more in transition next season. I think that's the value of transition was shown in the NBA Finals with the Thunder and the Pacers. So I think, and that's, you have such a weapon in him to do all that. Sorry, their allergies are catching up with me.
No. Okay.
This is unedited and live, folks. You get to hear me.
It is not. I'll cut that. Nobody will ever know that. Nobody will ever know that happened. I'm going to cut that straight out.
Okay. So he can be such a weapon in transition, but I think you just got to wire his game to play that way. And right now, his game isn't wired to play that way. Maybe that's a little bit of a byproduct of having such a large lineup around him the last couple of seasons, teams that are not geared to get out and run. Right, which is why I think Terrence Shannon Jr. can be a big addition to the rotation, because that's what he is wired to do. Right, so I think that can only benefit Ant in his ability to attack, and there'll be less resistance at the rim if you're able to get out and transition a little more. Right. Defense is shifted around, but you got to be committed to it. You got to be intentional about it, and the Wolves are a team that hasn't always been intentional about that aspect of their game.
Well, and I'm nodding my head vigorously as you're talking, because I'm like, you can want Ant to do that, but if you're giving him Rudy Gobert,
right,
and
yes,
Mike Conley
100%.
And Julius Randle and Mike, and Jaden McDaniels in your starting lineup, like you're not going to run.
You don't have the personnel to run.
There's
right?
nowhere to run.
You do not have the personnel to be a quick team that gets up and down the floor.
No.
That's 100% correct as well. And so if you want to go that direction as an organization, then you have to think long and hard about the kind of personnel that you're going to be surrounding him with.
Well, and that gets to maybe the final thing, like free agency is not far away. And we've been saying, you've been saying, and I've been kind of coming around to the idea that the two big guys could be back, like just because there's not a lot of money floating out there. Do you think that still holds, that Randall and Nas are here in some capacity? Yeah. And I don't know, even Nikhil, I don't know what his status is going to be, but
I do think that there's a good possibility that Randall and Reed are back. I think Nas, I wrote this the other day, Nas likely to opt out. Randall, we still don't know, but would not be a shock if he opted in at 31 million. Nas is at 15. Okay. So right. Nas, could get a new deal and start the clock towards his next deal, maybe, a little sooner than anticipated. So we'll see, but I think there's a pathway there. I just don't know what that's going to mean for Nikhil. I think if Nas gets a raise, and that's very possible to keep him around, that's less of the pie under the second apron for Nikhil. And so at that point, does he become the person who ends up walking? I think that's, if I had to forecast it, handicap it right now, that's maybe what I'm looking at. What I'm expecting is that Julius Randle, Nas Reed are back. Nikhil Alexander-Walker might be on another team next year.
Well, and if he wants to cash in, and if you think Jalen Clark and Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham are all ready for, or at least two of the three are ready for bigger roles, like those are backcourt guys, more or less, or those are at least wings and backcourt guys, and that's Nikhil Alexander-Walker. Well, we will see how all of this shakes out. Looking forward to 2 nights of the draft. Are you looking? You're not looking for. We've already talked about this. You are not looking forward to 2 nights.
No, I'm not.
You don't need that.
2-night draft is a waste of our time. Get it all done in one day. I don't care.
Nobody
listens. Tim Connelly was a big advocate of the 2-day draft. He wanted it. And I could not disagree more. Please get it all over with in one night. We do not need a 2-day NBA draft. We just don't.
I'm going to leak the audio.
The society really need a 2-day NBA draft. No, we do not.
Probably not. I'm going to leak the audio of your shouting match with him about that. I'm just kidding. I don't think that ever really happened, but you guys can respectfully disagree. And I think
friendly disagreement. Yeah,
friendly disagreement. Well, I'm on your team with that one. Well, a fascinating offseason. We're just right in the middle of it all. Going to get some answers soon. But one of the answers we got Tuesday was that, yes, indeed, the ownership transfer has taken place. And we'll see what that all means. We'll see what happens in the draft. We'll see what happens in free agency. Chris Hine will be there to cover it all. And then hopefully at some point he'll disappear for like a month and just go put his feet in the sand and never talk to us for like 6 weeks or so.
That's the dream.
Thanks, Chris. We'll see you later.
Thanks, Mike.